Greetings, fans, and welcome again to the massive hit cricket show, your place for all the T20 World Cup action, which starts this weekend, this Saturday on February 7th. The West Indies will be playing the second match in this World Cup, and as you know, of course, we're a West Indian channel. We'll be covering all West Indian games, but we'll also be covering some of those, let's say, more popular games. As you can see by the thumbnail on today's show, we'll talk about the West Indies team, whether or not the West Indies can make it to the Super 8s. Can they make it out of this first round? But we also take a look at Pakistan, India, which, very controversial situation going on over there with the Pakistan India encounter, which is usually one of the biggest games of the World Cup. A lot of financial implications if that game does not happen. But let's talk about the West Indies, what this World Cup looks like, the group staging, and how everything will look. All right, this is a 20-team World Cup, 20-team World Cup, which will be hosted, of course, in India and Sri Lanka. The West Indies are, of course, two-time champions. The West Indies won this competition in 2012 and also won this competition in 2016. You might also remember that same West Indian team did make it to the semifinals of the 2014 edition, which was won by Sri Lanka. All right, so 20-team World Cup divided into 4 groups. Each group has 5 teams. The West Indies find themselves in Group C. Now, just to explain the permutations and how this will work, 5 teams in each group. Everyone will play each other. So 4 games in that first round. And then the top 2 from each group will head to the Super 8s. So what that means is, for West Indies, for example, they're in a group. Let's go ahead and pull up the West Indian group so we can take a look at it. All right. So the West Indies, Group C, England, Italy, Nepal, Scotland, and the West Indies. From this group, the top 2 teams will make it into the Super 8s. Then from the Super 8s, the top 4 teams will make it to the semifinals. All right. So let's get this off the screen. How far can the West Indies go? What do you guys think? How far can the West Indies go in this tournament? And will they make it to the Super 8? Well, according to the experts, the West Indies will make it to the Super 8 of this competition, but it will not be automatic. The West Indies, of course, would be strong favorites against teams like Scotland, strong favorites against a team like Italy, who is, of course, new to Cricket World Cup action. But there are some potential banana peels, banana slips, which could potentially affect the West Indies. Let's take a look at the West Indies squad. West Indies will be captained by Shea Hope, and that squad includes Brandon King, Shimron Hetmeyer, Sherfin Rutherford, Rothman Powell, Jason Holder, Romario Shepherd, Matthew Ford, Quinton Sampson, Akil Hussain, Gudakesh Moti, Roston Chase, Shamar Joseph, and Jaden Seals, and Johnson Charles. Now, for the West Indies to really get through this phase of the World Cup, there are some games that the West Indies will look at, and they will target, and they will say these games are must win. Obviously, England would be sort of the other, I'm going to call them sort of, the favorites, like sort of our main team in this group. And of course, the West Indies did lose to England earlier on this year. But obviously, the West Indies are on their day as strong as any team in the world. And the West Indies will fancy their chances against any team. West Indies can, of course, beat England, especially in T20 action. So the West Indies won't be thinking that, England is a team they cannot beat. But the games that the West Indies will be targeted and will be looking at and saying, these are must-win games, would be the games versus Scotland, Nepal, and Italy. Now, as most of you would have known, this group previously included Bangladesh, and Bangladesh recently kicked out of the World Cup, replaced by Scotland. And for the West Indies team, you'd probably want to say, especially in Asian conditions where spin will be a factor, you'll probably want to say that the West Indies lucked out in terms of getting rid of Bangladesh, which is a team that could potentially challenge the West Indies. Um, Although the West Indies did beat Bangladesh recently in Bangladesh in a T20 series. So that's also something to think about. But still, unfortunate for Bangladesh, but for the West Indies, perhaps makes things a little bit easier. So Scotland, one of the opponents there, and they will be, let me just take a look at it. Look at this. Scotland will be the West Indies' first opponent on Saturday, February 7th. So that would be the first day of World Cup action, second game of the tournament, first game for the West Indies. Looking at the Scotland team, the West Indies, I think they won't have too many fears. I think the West Indies will look down that list and they'll see that Chris Soule is not there. Chris Soule, obviously, the West Indies would have remembered from the World Cup qualifiers. He bowled at 150 clicks. And I think he's someone that the West Indies would definitely would have looked at and thought to themselves, he's a danger man and someone who, potentially could cause some issues. But Chris Soule is not in this team. And therefore, I don't think the West Indies will be too concerned about Scotland. I think the West Indies start heavy favorites against Scotland. Now, the key about playing teams like Scotland, teams like Italy, is for a team like the West Indies, and we would have remembered the last tournament where we had a scare against Papua New Guinea. Now, a team like the West Indies, if they fall behind early against one of these teams, you sort of run the risk of giving these teams confidence. And once that happens, then anything could happen. But the West Indies will be looking to play positive cricket, play on the front foot, attack these teams early, and essentially sort of you almost want to say put them in their place, so to speak. I think if the West Indies are able to go out there, they're able to, when batting, get off to rollicking starts in the power play, or when bowling, if they're able to pick early wickets against any of these teams, then I think the West Indies will feel as if they should be able to knock over the likes of Scotland and Italy. Now, biggest threat to the West Indies team. There are some key matchups, but I think the biggest threat to this West Indies team will be Nepal. Now, Nepal is one of those teams. They're well led, very sort of thoughtful leader, and it is a team that they're scrappy, right? Not necessarily the most firepower in the world in terms of their batting and their ball striking ability, but they are still a team that will get middling sort of totals. And this is one. It's going to be one of the better fielding teams also in the World Cup. They do have a couple of absolutely gun fielders in this side that can definitely put opposing batsmen under pressure. In Sammy, in Lami Chami and also Lalit Raj Banshi, they have those two spinners who can really sort of keep things tight in the middle and also get wickets on a regular basis, which we all know has been a big issue for the West Indies team. Now, the West Indies will, of course, need to counter that, but they have recently obviously promoted Shimron Hetmeyer up to number 3, and his job is really to make sure that the West Indies are not getting stuck against spin. His job is to make sure that the West Indies is really going and attacking these spinners early. So if Shimron can find some consistency, and if someone like Shea Hope can bat somewhat deep into the innings, that will be the way the West Indies will look to counter spin. So biggest threat there to the West Indies will obviously be Nepal, just because of the spin factor that they sort of bring to the fold. Now, guys, I will be greetings, Glex. I'll definitely be looking at the comments soon, but certainly I think Nepal will be the biggest threat to the West Indies. and that's a team that the West Indies will need to not only look out for, but will need to really get on the front foot against that team and try to hit them early. Obviously, the team would have lost 2-1 recently in a series to Nepal. That obviously wasn't also the sort of West Indies frontline team. It would have had a few of the replacement guys. Perhaps you could call it a West Indies B or C team. But nonetheless, Nepal will have some familiarity with some of the West Indian players and potentially some amount of confidence just because they would have obviously won that game or that series earlier last year. So that is definitely the team or the matchup that the West Indies will really need to hone in on. I do believe that wins will come easily against Scotland, especially with them missing Chris Soule. And when I think Italy, I don't think Italy could really trouble the West Indies outfit. But Nepal definitely a team to watch out for. And of course, once the West Indies gets to England, um, that will be always be a toss up. England is a very very strong team. We know that you know guys like Phil Salt. These guys have had a very very good time against the West Indian team. Um, and of course, he's someone who would have performed also in Indian conditions in the IPL last year. So he's definitely someone who the team will look to keep their eyes on, right? Someone who they look to want to keep quiet, obviously. And of course, they have Josh Butler, who again a great great performer, and Adil Rashid. He's also another key piece for England, and West Indies will have to counter, these three players. I think these players would be key when the West Indies look at a team like England. Now, for this World Cup, for the West Indies to do well, I have identified some key players for the West Indies team that I think these guys will have to do well for the West Indies to sort of go deep into this tournament. The West Indies certainly have the ability. I think this team gets through to that second phase of the tournament, but how much further can they go? Can they actually perform and win games of cricket consistently once they start meeting those better teams in the Super 8? But the players that I have identified who should, will make a huge difference if they perform. Shimron Hetmeyer, very, very key role for Shimron Hetmeyer, batting at number 3. He has been given huge responsibility to not only continue momentum in the power play, but also someone who the team will expect to bat deeper into the innings and potentially bat long enough to finish games as well. So Hetmeyer, he has a key role in this team. And as a left-hander as well, I think there's huge responsibility on someone like him to perform. Um, Another key player for the West Indies, Jason Holder. Perhaps, you know, definitely sort of we want to call him the talisman of this team, the most experienced bowler in the attack. He will be very, very important, not only with his bowling, not only with his variations, but in terms of leading the troops, in terms of keeping everyone calm. I've seen, Jason Holder, obviously against Pakistan earlier this year, last year that is, he had a very, very good series, won a couple of games for the West Indies. But someone like him, um, you know, also we've also seen in the past where he has had the tendency to, whenever some of the opposing sort of best batsman goes at him, we've also seen him fall apart. We saw it against AB de Villiers when AB de Villiers made that broke that world record when he made 115 about 60 balls. You've seen it against Josh Butler, and the last game that the West Indies played against South Africa didn't start well, but obviously came back well towards the end. Bowled the penultimate over before Shamar Joseph would have finished that game, and that is a Jason Holder that we will want to see throughout this tournament. If we can have that Jason Holder along with the Jason Holder who is doing well with the bat, finishing games the way he did in CPL, the way he's been doing on the franchise circuit, then I think the West Indies again will stand a very good chance. Rodman Powell. Former captain Rodman Powell, he is going to be key. He is going to be key. And the reason why I'm highlighting players like Hitmeyer, Joseph, and Powell, I generally know what I'm going to get from Shea Hope. I generally know what I'm probably going to get from Rutherford. I have an idea what I'm going to get from Brandon King. I feel as if these guys, Hitmeyer, can be a real game changer. I feel if I can get Jason Holder at his best real game changer. Also, Rodman Powell. If Rodman Powell performs with the bat and is consistent for the Westerners in that number four, number five, which is a pivotal role, it means he will also play well against spin. If he can do well, then I think that will definitely help the Westerners team in this World Cup. So I feel Rodman Powell is a absolute gun player for the West Indies. Um, Crick Lover, again, welcome everyone, and I see your comments. I'll definitely read a couple of this of these comments. Crick Lover here saying Italy played a decent warm up game yesterday. Scotland took some blows from Afghanistan. Yeah. Again, yes, Italy was decent, but I don't think the Westerners will be too worried about a team like this. I think for the Westerners, they will really need to come out and attack these teams very, very early. Leon Gaming here. If the Westerners make it out, they'll be in a group of India, New Zealand, and Australia. Well, keep in mind that the top teams will be going through to the Super 8. So it doesn't matter which group you're in, you're going to end up against some pretty good teams there. All right, let's jump to this story here. Now, in other World Cup news, let me just pull this up. In other World Cup news, Pakistan is also in some amount of, I wouldn't say trouble, but obviously, there's been, a lot around, surrounding the story of Pakistan deciding that they will not play India in this World Cup. Is this really going to happen, and what are the ramifications of such a decision? As we know, India versus Pakistan is a hotly anticipated game, and it's one of the huge encounters of the World Cup, one of the encounters that everyone looks forward to. So let's hear a little bit about this and what's going on.
Going to the World Cup at all. Do you think that the PCB will be persuaded by somebody, probably not the ICC, which, as Shada Ugra said, is actually the Dubai office of the BCCI? Will this game go ahead?
Well, I mean, initially I thought that it might all amount to hot air, but now I feel that if the Pakistan government has given this directive, then they'll kind of have to follow through with it. If not, then there'll have to be some sort of negotiation done between the ICC and the PCB over here. I'm not sure how that'll go down either. What's happened over here is that Pakistan cricket, within the ecosystem, they had one bargaining chip on the table. They only had one real card in their hand, and they hadn't played it thus far. But, cricket and politics, even though they've always been intertwined, it seems like we've kind of reached a tipping point. It doesn't surprise me that they've gone in this direction as well. And we're not sure what happens to the sport at large either, because, of course, the broadcasters will take a hit. The ICC will be in a very tricky position because the lesser endowed cricket boards in our sport rely on this game. They survive by or through the money that's generated between India and Pakistan when they play each other in ICC tournaments. So I'm keen to see how the ICC responds over here, because there'll be a lot of pressure from the broadcasters. Rights or the agreement of rights, the amount is decided on this game, really. It revolves around India Pakistan. So this is, a massive moment in our sport, and I can't quite comprehend what happens from here, Manis.
Yeah, so very sort of serious developments there happening with Pakistan and their refusal to play India. as mentioned there in the clip, this game generates a significant percentage of the revenue for this World Cup, and of course, a lot of these teams, their sort of um, bread and butter is that ICC funding, and a lot of it comes from this encounter between India and Pakistan. So Pakistan essentially has fired their bullet, and now it's up to the ICC and how they respond to this. Will Pakistan suffer any sort of consequences? Of course, the news that Pakistan will not play against India in this World Cup came from the Pakistan government. So the Pakistan Cricket Board has not put out any official word on this. But we'll continue to monitor the situation and see what happens. And is Pakistan, are they going to end up playing against India? Are India going to fly to Sri Lanka for that encounter, regardless of whether this game happens or not? All interesting things. All right, so that's it where that story is concerned. We'll continue to, monitor these developments, and we'll sort of bring you more information as it becomes clearer to us. Um, Michael Davis, big up yourself as well. Um, I see Vaughn here saying Australia and New Zealand will have these spinning wickets, especially in India, where the wickets are mostly flat. Yeah, should be a very, very interesting World Cup. Prediction here is that the West Indies should make it through to the super eights of this tournament. But what will happen from there? The matchup against Nepal is perhaps the trickiest matchup for the West Indies team in this first round, just because their strength is that spin bowling of Lami Chami. That's going to be sort of the tricky matchup, and also Labit Rash Banshi. That's going to be a real tricky matchup for the West Indies team. And of course, we all know that Nepal is a very spunky team, a team that is very, very it's a very good fielding team. They do have a couple of the best fielders in the world, and a team like this will look to put the West Indies under some amount of pressure. But we will see. It's a World Cup. I mean, all teams are there to win. The West Indies will be won't want to take any team lightly. They won't want to take Italy lightly. They won't want to take Scotland lightly. But those are games that the team should win. And second round awaits, and we'll see what happens then. Again, you've been watching the massive hit cricket show, your place for all the live World Cup updates. We'll be here to bring you the stats, the facts, and all the news as it relates to the West Indies cricket team and any other big news surrounding this World Cup. Stay locked in, and as always, what do? We stay massive. Bye for now.